Shalom, shalom to everyone watching via Ways of Israel, Los Caminos de Israel. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero. And I just want to wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom to everyone watching and all the emails and responses I've gotten as a result of various of my English videos. The question I'm posing this morning is, can we, or rather yet, can Mashiach be able to rule without the full consent of all Israel in order for him to rule all of Israel? Obviously, this thought was provoked by a statement that Rabbi Tovia Singer stated in his video regarding God TV and the urgency that the Christian Messianic community holds Jesus. And obviously, it's a question that deserves an answer. And this was based, according to Tovia Singer, on the passage in Matthew, the message of the Christian gospel out to the Jews. They feel it's necessary that all of Israel will accept the Messiah. Well, their Messiah, their concept of Messiah. And to a certain degree, it is true. We, all Israel, are holding back the Mashiach. There's a couple of things I'm going to say here that may be a little bit shocking. That shouldn't be, but I'm going to say it anyhow. One of the great disservice that I have discovered and found being among my people is the fact of the fear factor that dealing with anything that has to do with Jesus or the Hebrew name Yeshua, it causes an incredible shock value. In other words, you talk to a rabbi, any rabbi, and you use the word Yeshua, the first reaction is they want to stomp on it, they want to crumble it. And because there's a lot of misunderstanding, because to be honest, it's not really their fault after thousands of years of being persecuted in that name, need to understand the reason why the reaction, being killed in the name, in his name, and being mistreated because of the name, being persecuted because of the name, and also much inquisition because of the name. Now, obviously, I was not raised, as it were, in a shtetl mentality, but rather more open. This is why a lot of people come out and reach out to me, because I'm not closed-minded. And the Jewish people have always been, at least the Jews from Spain, were always very open-minded regarding any topic of philosophy, any topic of religion. We have encountered more closed-minded individuals when we go into the more ultra-religious, where they never even had an opportunity to be able to read what's considered usser manuscripts or literature, because it's considered books of the manim, of the heretics. So I want to address this, and I think that once the fear factor is removed, a more open and clear discussion can be brought at hand. Especially within the Hasidic world, they should understand that the Menagdim basically also persecuted the Hasidic movement for many, many years for their Mashiachistic and rants and rave positions. And I want to say this because the whole entire impetus of even the Chabad movement had always been to bring the knowledge of the concept of Mashiach throughout the whole world, and obviously with the intent to try to declare their leader the HaMashiach of our generation. And I'm going to read to you something, because obviously the world is in a position right now that seeks to bring this all with God TV. They have the passion, the yearning to bring their Mashiach now. In the same way that the Chabad movement wishes to bring their Mashiach now. It's nothing new, my friends, in Judaism. It's not new at all. We see that this was the dividing point in first century with the issue of Yeshua, that there were those who supported him as Mashiach and those who were against him. Obviously, those who were against him won over, and he was rejected as a position. But I want to have you understand one very clear notion here. Mashiach cannot rule unless all Israel accepts Mashiach, the candidate. There cannot be a true monarchy unless all of its citizenry accepts upon themselves the yoke of MalChut. This is called MalChut HaShamayim, the kingdom of heaven, or MalChut from MalChut David, from MalChut B'nai David, from the children of David. So Israel will continue to experience problems and problems and problems until this is met full force. Now I'm going to start with reading a passage from which Rabbi Tovia Singer cited from the Christian Bible, so you understand the impetus how Christians look at Jews as stopping or impeding the coming of the Mashiach. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou killest the prophets, and stones them that are sent to thee. How often would I have gathered my children together, even as a hen gathereth her chickens under her wings, and ye would not. I want you to understand the problem of the first century is that not everyone from exile returned from exile to come back and rebuild the second temple fully to the extent of establishing the monarchy. We saw that was a major failure that took place in the second century. And what broke out was Lashon Hara, lack of respect one for another. I can even dare say, even Mosarim were in abundance because they were being utilized by Rome to, you might say, betray other Jews, Jews against Jews, to such an extent that we hear in history, it's documented, we cannot deny this, that a group of Jews in the leadership basically was in conspiracy with the Roman government to turn over a Jew, something that in halakha is prohibited. It's prohibited to turn over a Jew to the secular powers, the secular court, for death penalty. And this was one of the greatest tragedies in history. And let me create hatred against Israel, but to recognize Israel's history of not complying to Jewish law in its fullest. And we see that the very leadership, the Sadducees in particular, were involved in turning over a descendant of David to the Roman powers for death, to eliminate a political problem that they had. And of course, as a result of that and many other problems of Lashon Hara and a lack of Sinat Hinam that was not only addressed against this movement, but one another, all the way till the end of the second century, when already the Jews were exiled throughout the whole world, or being exiled throughout the whole world, which this abomination that caused desolation took place. We see the hurt and the pain and the literal anger began to become a resentment among the Jewish people against this one persona that Rome transformed into a pacifist Messiah. Now, why am I saying this? Because till this day, many Christians know that the Jews need to accept Yeshua as Mashiach in order for Mashiach to come. As Rabbi Tovia Singer makes mention, this is why many anti-missionary groups feel threatened by the fact of God TV. And it says for this in Matthew chapter 23, chapter 23, and going into the point where it says, Yeshua says, behold, your house is left unto you desolate. For I say unto you, ye shall not see me henceforth. Baruch haba b'Shem Hashem. Why is this important for the Christians to get the message out? You have to receive their Mashiach, Yeshua, in order for him to come and establish that. Now, you have in another movement, the Chabad movement, who so arduously influenced in a positive way the whole entire Jewish world to believe that Mashiach is here, and they even made a whole song, we want Mashiach now, and really influenced the entire world with this concept of Mashiach in a new tone. To such a degree, I have to give recognition to what the Lubavitcher Rebbe said by saying that one is forbidden, even upon this Yeshua say, Yemak Shemo. This was said to me by many shluchim who heard the Lubavitcher Rebbe say this. So now I want you to bring all of this into fact and into focus for hold on to a Mashiach personality until all of Israel accepts him. Be he Yeshua a true messianic time without accepting the Mashiach. There is no Jew that can even understand this in its full. And this is why this whole entire idea of the corona, even the matria of Mashiach in later here, that classical Jewish text, people gather conditions of the messianic era. According to the Talmud, Babylonian Talmud Rosh Hashanah 97, which is a lot of midrash there. The midrash in the Zohar, the deadline by which the Mashiach must appear and converting to Judaism in Messianic age becomes a central question. On one concern was many Gentiles that converts are not received in the days of Messiah, just as they were not welcomed in the days of, and we see that in the Babylonian Talmud Yevamot 24b. Therefore, if there are no planes, no Gentiles can come to Israel to convert to Judaism. So literally, now is the time to convert. End of days is taken from Numbers of Badmidbar 20, the book that we're in now, where we're beginning to read in our Messianic era. And here we shall explore, although brief, says says Yehuda Lav, this idea. What does the word Mashiach come? Very simple. It's the word Messiah in English, which means the anointed one, or been translated also as the deliverer. The title Mashiach is reserved for the Jewish leader who will redeem Israel at the end of days, which means that it will establish the monarchy. What is the belief of Mashiach? The principle of the Jewish faith enumerated by Maimonides is that one will one day arise a dynamic Jewish leader, a direct descendant of the Davidic dynasty, who will rebuild the temple in Jerusalem and gather Jews from all over the world and bring them back to the land of Israel. All the nations of the world, this is key, I want you to listen to this, all the nations of the world will recognize Mashiach to be the world leader and will accept his dominion. When it says all the world, this includes Kalal Israel, because if Israel does not accept the dominion, the yoke of Mashiach, he will. Israelites, the Jews, are holding back Mashiach. Because until every single Jew in the land of Israel and take upon themselves, saying that they're willing to be dictated by Melech HaMashiach, he will not show up. Do you have the understanding? So yes, Tobia. For the Christians, only when the Jews accept Mashiach will then Mashiach come. For the Chabadniks, the same thing. Only when the yoke and the Kamsus, all Israel accepts Mashiach. So let God TV at least spread the message in all of Israel. I'm okay with that. I don't care who the Mashiach is, but let him come already. And let us all say, instead of Yehi Adonenu, let us say Baruch haba b'Hashem ha. And we'll accept his dominion in the Messianic era. And there will be world peace, no more war. In general, it's a high standard of living. All mankind will worship the one God and live a more occupied with learning Torah and fathoming its secrets and teaching the nations. This is the whole idea of the prophet Zechariah, where he mentions that 10 men from all the nations will take hold of the Jew. Please teach us about your God. All mankind will worship one God and live in a moral superiority or level of what to do which is right. The coming of Mashiach will complete God's prayer in this world, not over there in heaven. Here, in this physical material plane, perhaps, But Judaism fervently believes that with the correct leadership, humankind can and will change, not to be confused with order. New World Order is something imposed by force. It is contrary to Torah. It's by lies and deception. It is by implanting chips and by implanting a system where it can control the parallel utopian that's trying to be created by people who are completely of a pulse of the 5G towers. Judaism taught that we are to give up our lives instead to submit to, snuffing out human life, murder by a press of a button. It is talking about a system. They monitor. Not only that, it is creating themselves to be deified, God. And here include that as well. The immorality and the corruption of this New World Order is terrible. And it's completely opposite. I'm trying to explain that we will have to give up our life if necessary instead of being chipped. This is what is clearly taught by the Torah. So there may be rabbis who will try to justify it, but these rabbis, this beast that is rising is counter. No, Judaism believes that with correct leadership, a good New World Order is brought down to its knees. Many people are repulsed by the breakdown of ethical and moral standards, which will represent in flesh. Life is cheap. Crime is rampant. Drug and alcohol abuse is on the increase. Children have lost respect for their elders. And at the same time, ask ourselves, can such a New World Order human Messiah? Why not make it believe the world will evolve by itself into a messianic era without a human figurehead for power? Others believe in Armageddon coming, but it's not going to be as self-destructive that there will be no more world. And again, Judaism rejects this idea too. Our prophet speaks of an event of a human leader of a magnitude that the world has not yet experienced. His unique example, leadership, Mashiach mentioned in scriptures are replete with the messianic quote, where they will fulfill all the commandments of Torah. And even the Gentile prophets Balaam prophesied that his return will be 17 through 20, as well as the oral among Jews in observance of the 7 universal laws. By non-Jews, he will scrupulously be observant and encourage the highest standard of morality and action. He will defend religious principles and repair the breach as a true Jewish king. In other words, he has to be coronated, a person who will lead the way in the serving way. When will he come? Ani ma'amim. We believe in the coming of Mashiach. Every single Jew believes, at least if he's observant, in the concept of the coming of Mashiach. This Messiah figure, you're wrong. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Because even if it's a Messiah figure, if that Messiah figure happens to believe in Torah and believes in one God, he goes counter to your concept of the Antichrist. Because even according to your Paul, the Antichrist is going to be a person who's going to be setting himself up to be God himself in the flesh, to be worshipped as a God, to be put upon the people this mark. Jews will never accept an Antichrist pictured by Christians. Morality at the expense of corruption, at the expense of satisfying their personal egos and their pocketbook. That's called a system of corruption. This is what the New World Order is all about. And thus, corruption and degradation will precede the very coming of the true Messiah. Whether if you want to believe it's Yeshua or the Rebbe of Lubavitch or a third candidate, or perhaps believe that none has yet arrived yet, but we're waiting for him. All of these individuals believe in the coming of Mashiach, and we should stop debating who he is, but rather what we need. And what we need is the truth, but not until he comes here physically and here on earth and do the actions that's required. Then